Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profits podcast. I'm Jim Floyd, owner of Ascent Total Performance.
And I'm Jeremy Powers, owner of Powers Insurance Expert.
Yeah, so today we'll get into our topic a little bit, but we're also just kind of chatting and stuff. I got a really cool story from this weekend that I like to share. This is like a proud dad moment.
Let's go.
So both of my daughters are at camp right now. We went up for a parents' weekend, and so my older daughter, and they're both having a great time and really kind of just making a lot of new friends and doing all kinds of different activities, archery, all kinds of stuff like that, and really loving it. So when we got there, my older daughter told us that she had won second place in the talent show with singing. And as part of the parents' weekend, they do the performance for all the parents when you're there too. So we're in this like old rustic wooden lodge kind of thing, 100-something people out in the audience. And my daughter gets up there, and it's probably my influence, but she loves this song, Kiss from a Rose by Seal. So it was a long time ago, like in one of the Batman movies.
Yeah.
So she decided she was going to sing that for the talent show. And so she gets up there, she's got the mic, they start the song, mic's not on. She's still singing. She just keeps going. Like after the first verse is gone, song just cuts off. She's standing up there in front of 100-something people, just holding the mic, just standing there.
Oh, no.
And this is where I'm so proud of her. She just stands there, takes it, and just waits.
Wow.
And you can see she's starting to freak out a little bit, but she just does it. And so proud of her. And just seeing her be able to work through that, turn the song back on, and she just belts it out. Comes and sits down with me. First thing I've got to tell her is like, great job. But then also is like, so proud of you of how you handle that adversity too. So I thought it was just a really cool thing. And man, that's like anybody who's out there as a parent, you kind of see those little glimpses of who your kid's going to be as they grow and all that stuff. I just thought it was a really cool, just like, how do you handle that adversity?
That's it, man. That's what a blessing to be able to be in a position as a parent and just to witness your kid do something outstanding. And that, to me, it's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you hope you can instill this. Or it's so funny how sometimes your kids almost teach you something. You know, it's like, man, those moments. But when you think about camp, all I can think about is the blob. You know, that big thing on a lake that somebody jumps off and then you go launching into the air. Like one of my bucket list items is to be the recipient of the blob. You know, I just want to go get launched through the air, you know. So no camp adventures complete without that. Yeah. So hopefully they're having the time of their life.
Whenever you get super baller and you get your lake house and all that stuff, well, get that.
That's
right.
But until then, I can come to yours. So that's it. Well, hey, today it's going to be fun. Today we're going to talk about nipping it in the bud. Okay, I don't know if that's just a Southern term, you know, but we're going to talk about like how to just get to it and just say what you need to say, because in this leadership series that we're on together, we're going through, this is an important topic as a leader that it's not always fun, but it's something that has to happen.
Yeah, and as we're navigating through that series of things, as our business grows and we're adding staff, and hopefully we're able to cultivate an environment where everyone's learning and getting better at what they're doing. And you should be playing a big part of that, of teaching and really setting the tone and really kind of setting those expectations of things. There's always going to be things where someone's not meeting expectations or they're not doing it how you would want to do it. And we have to kind of walk that line between, is this something that we want to allow someone to work through and be able to coach them through? And ideally it is. But then there are going to be some things that, whether it's a non-negotiable type thing, or if it's just something that's like, you know, this is something that is really bothering me as a leader and the owner. And the longer this goes and bothers me, the bigger it's going to become in my mind. And I get more irritated about it and all that stuff. And then that is going to end up being a not good situation when I finally do say something about this to a staff member or anything like that, because vast majority of the time they don't even know they're doing anything wrong or anything that you want to be able to change. So using that concept of being able to just nip it at the start. Yeah. And so I mean, I'm dating myself, but I remember growing up and watching the Andy Griffith show with my parents. And that was one of the main characters would always say, nip it. And as soon as something started happening, you got to nip it in the bud. And maybe it is a Southern term,
that's right,
whatever. But it is, it's like, we need to, if it is a behavior that needs to be corrected or guided, we need to do that as soon as possible versus just letting it go and letting it fester and become something bigger than what it should be.
I completely agree. And, some examples or maybe some steps that we can really look at whenever we're looking to think about, okay, well, how can I do this? Number one, and it's struggle, but number one's a character thing. It's leading by example.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to call someone out or nip something in the bud, like make sure that you are yourself also not doing it. It's because we find ourselves saying, hey, I pay these people. So like, it's almost like sometimes we may feel like this, that like we're the chess master and they're all pieces in the game. Well, like I bought this piece, so I should get to determine where it moves, but yet no one should look at me because I'm the owner, and that's, where servant leadership really has to come into play, or, where you have to understand that, like, to really be the leader, to be first is to be last, and so I think that's number one is character bit.
You got to have that credibility with it. And I think that becomes an introspective thing of, am I modeling this well? But then also, have I set the expectations and given this person the resources to be able to do this the right way? And have I clearly defined that we want it done this way? If you have, then that's one conversation. But if we haven't, then there's just an opportunity. We're going to be able to nip that behavior, but doing it in a very constructive way, because now this is just an opportunity to be able to teach.
That's right.
And be able to get them doing it the way we need to.
100%. So we've got some character, some things to look at there. Yep. But whenever this is something in your organization and you're saying, hey, what I want to do is I want to set like a 1, 2, 3. Number one is always act promptly.
Yep.
Because if something continuously happens, you keep saying, hey, I want to see if maybe it'll get better over time or this, that, and that. Well, then all of a sudden when you do bring it up, it's like, hey, this has been happening regularly. You never said anything about it before. Yeah. So why does it matter now? And so I believe that's number one on the list is act promptly.
Yeah. And to expand on that too, is not only for that person who is performing that action, then if you have other staff members too, they're going to see that happening, and there's nothing being done about that. So then that just becomes, okay, well, that's okay to do, kind of thing. And so then everything's always going to migrate to that lowest common denominator. And so that's just another thing of, we really need to be on top of making sure that we are nipping behaviors, nipping things that we want to make better. We need to address those as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And number two for me is going to be assertive and ultimately be clear. Yeah. This isn't something to tiptoe around. Yeah. If you're willing to dive in and talk about something that needs to happen, go ahead and get it out of the way. A lot of times we build things up in our head to be so much more than they really are. And you just need to get out there, because ultimately it all comes back to the character too. Is like, people want to know that you're willing to have those difficult conversations. Like, I can't follow a leader who's scared to go and tell Bob that every day's not blue jean, day or whatever. If our business does X, Y, or Z, or if, somebody's, bringing the fish fry to work every day for lunch and the whole office smells like X, Y, or Z, you know what I mean? It's these things. They can be the smallest of things, but when you're not doing something for one person and you are for this other person and all this, that, and the other, to me, it all comes back to that clear, assertive communication. It's not, you don't always have to be everyone's friend. No. And no one expects you to be. Some leaders that I think, or some people that I think about when I think about, people that I respect, these are people that are willing to be your friend, but they're also willing to step up and lead, even when it's not in a friendly manner.
And you need to let somebody know. And and I think that, and you're absolutely right, that it kind of gets built up in our heads because we don't want to, we don't like having negative conversations. And we don't like having to discipline someone if it comes to that or anything like that. And I'll freely say that I have failed at this a ton, of wanting to be the nice guy and supportive and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes what that leads to is not being as clear and like, this is what we really need to do. And this is how we need to do it. And there's not a whole lot of leeway for different options with that. And what I've found, and I've gotten a lot better at it. It's still a challenge for me. But being able to be as clear as possible about what these things are and what the corrective action needs to be, and then holding accountability with that as well.
That's right. And so we've got, act promptly. We've got ultimately where you are going to take measures in your hand. You're going to make things happen the moment that it happens.
Yep.
You've got, obviously, the first thing is you're leading by example. Those all tie into what's going to be number 3, which is constructive feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to, once again, lead by example from a character standpoint, and I'm going to be assertive and say what needs to be said, and I'm not scared to hurt your feelings, I'm going to be a true leader, I also have to be willing to allow the group to be a part of it. Because if you allow people to build something, they want to see it stay together.
Yep.
If you just keep telling them, hey, this is this and this is that, it's not their baby. No. And so you can't expect this to happen perfectly every time. But if people have a part in the building process, they have investment, and they want to see their investment come to fruition. They want to see it, accelerate, not dissipate. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, for me, I think this is a key part of it, where it takes a real leader, someone who's willing to open the floor and say, hey, we're going to talk about it, but also not to let this get, I go back to the book Traction, where it's like, hey, well, these are the things, we've got a list over here, and these are the 4 things we're talking about today. If you didn't bring something to us before this meeting, we can put those on the list for next month.
Yeah.
So we're talking about maybe number 3 right now, and you start coming up with a 6, 7, and 8. Hey, great. Let's put those on the list for next month.
Yeah.
But we're going to continuously talk about what we have scheduled to talk about today. So I think it's leading the conversation, but also being open to allow everyone to get their voice out.
Yeah. And I think that's a really big part of it, is you want those conversations to still be constructive. And it's not just like, Jeremy, you really sucked at this, and that's all I got to say. And we want to give the opportunity to be able to get better at things, and we need it to be a constructive thing. So what can we do, or what ideas do you have about how we can do this better? Or what ideas do you have about how I can communicate these expectations better, or what are you not clear on?
Yeah.
And we want to give some of that ownership to the staff member in that scenario too, of just like, because we need them to be a part of it.
That's right.
I had a conversation with the practice owner last week, and we were talking about the importance of core values and all that stuff. And I mean, those are everything in my company. And we try to have everything, those lead every single action that we do and every communication that we have and all that stuff. And I think one of the points that this practice owner made was, they will kind of go through those when they're needing to have a tough conversation with a staff member about like not meeting expectations or just needing to change some behavior or anything like that. And going through these are the expectations. This is what our core values on. If you're willing to really kind of take that journey with us and really kind of lean into these to get better, then we want to support you and give you every opportunity to be able to do that. But if it's something where it's not just quite vibing with you, and these core values aren't really kind of syncing with you, then we're going to help you move on to some place that's going to be a better fit for you too. And I thought that was a really nice way to kind of relate things back to things too. And thinking about like a conversation of someone maybe not doing something that you would like, or just that's not meeting kind of what the expectations are for their position. Then it's just like, if we can relate that back, that even adds more ability to make it more of a constructive conversation.
Absolutely. And on a lighter note, I definitely felt like I was just in a room with TikTok Jim when you put vibing into a sentence. I mean, bro, you got it. I mean, I felt like I need to step up my game on the words that I use. So no cap, dude. I got to step it up. And you know what? My kids are going to watch that and be like, oh gosh. So, I always jokingly tell kids at church, I was always like, oh, kneecap. I'm old. So I got to say like my kneecaps hurt. Well, I think that another thing, if you're really coming into this and building on what you're saying, is understanding how important it is when you're trying to get a point across to repeat yourself and reinforce the message. So if you have a 15-minute spiel, you need to say that key point at least 3 times in that, because when people hear that repetition and they understand the importance of it, and it's not like in like a dictator type way, but it's if you talk this much about your message and then you just go on to something, or you just try to allow people to have that open floor, this, that, and the other, it's forgotten so quickly. And so I think that number 4 on this list is understanding when this might be something you have to do premeditated a little bit, but have your little notes where in your head, I've got to bring up this topic, highlight it, you know, and put the asterisks all over it to make sure you're letting them know, hey, this is really important.
Yeah, and you need to have that repetition, and that's what the brain's going to respond to. Back in my previous career with advertising, one of the things we learned, especially for like radio ads, I mean, I can't remember how many times, but it was like, that's why I like when you're listening to the radio and you hear them say the phone number like 10 times in the span of 20 seconds kind of thing, because your brain recognizes that repetition as, oh, that information is important because I'm continually hearing it kind of thing. And so I think like what you're saying, we're working it into that conversation to be able to convey the importance of those things. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, notice they don't repeat the disclaimer they say at the end. It's like, hey, I always wanted to be that when I grew up because how fast I talk, but then I realized they just speed someone's voice up and I could never talk that fast. The final step in this, to me, is going to come after this is all said and done. You've nipped it in the bud. It's happened. The conversation's done. You've reinforced it. You've led by example. Things are happening. You've had open, clear communication. You've allowed for constructive feedback, all these wonderful things. But then it all comes in the beautiful thing that we've talked about before called follow-up.
Yep.
And I think that follow-up is so important in getting that feedback. There are certain things that you can do for your team, like SurveyMonkey type things, this, that, and the other, where you can actually kind of send out little surveys and things. Actually, in our church is something that I'm a huge fan of and something I want to bring to life as we expand, as we're growing so rapidly, is, let's just say a service area or a certain area that you have. It's like, oh, I want to send out something where it's like, hey, what is something that you saw happen this week that like no one else saw that you would want to just come in, you would just want to say, hey man, this was awesome. Or let me just ask you, what is something that you think we could do better? Yeah. Because getting that feedback, and I know it's a little bit different of a topic, but just trying to think about an example to what's real life for me right now is seeing feedback and really getting that true, like, hey, this is what we got from it. That is a stepping stone to getting better. Remember, leadership it's not like you made it into leadership and you're there. Yeah, it's a constant growth. And so it's all about stepping stones.
Yeah. And I really like that, just the follow-up of things, because, we can talk about it once. And unless we have that, we just talked about repetition a lot in the message that we're saying, but we also need that repetition and follow-up and making sure that we're staying on top of these things. I have a great example from actually last week of, we send out monthly surveys to our staff through our payroll system. And some of the feedback, one of the feedback things I got on there was that, we talk about different things, but then I don't feel like it's followed up on. And so that's something where I was like, man, that really hit me. I take that stuff to heart because I don't want to be that kind of company or that kind of leadership and all that stuff. And ultimately that falls on me. So I really, really took that to heart. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Yeah. So I actually spent all this morning just working on different systems for making sure that we're doing things and making sure we're creating the environment of how I want it to be. So no one ever feels like what they said wasn't followed up on. That's right. Or anything like that. And it's a powerful tool to be able to have those. And we need to have that accountability and that follow up on any issues.
That's right.
That happen.
That's 100%. I appreciate you sharing that. We truly appreciate you guys being here with us. I know there's been opportunities, things that you've experienced where you've had either nip it in the bud, or maybe you've had that opportunity where someone's had to have that hard conversation with you or a team. We'd love to hear about those. We love to communicate and just do life with you guys. It's such a pleasure to be here and to just be doing what we love and growing together. And so we hope you guys have a great week. Remember, we're all working to get better together because the purpose is always more important than the profits.
Absolutely. And it's we said say what you need to say. It's just like that song, that John Mayer song just comes in. So Jeremy, take it
say
away.
What you need to say.
Okay.
That's where we'll end.